Chapter 3. The Neg. So, what's Frocraw's spatiosensory perception feel like? Jinto asked Lafier, sitting beside her in the assistant steerer's chair. That's difficult to explain. Lafier had just extended her circlet's access cable and plugged it into her seat's backrest. Is it true you know about everything around the spaceship using that? Yes. Like this, I can sense what the ship senses. Her eyes took on a questioning sheen. Is Frocraw's that rare? It's rare, all right, Jinto replied with a shrug. This is the first time I've ever met someone with it. Frocraw's was a sense unique to the Ovs each bore frosh, spatiosensory organ on their foreheads. These frosh were typically obscured by their circlets, and so landers rarely got a chance to see them even in videos, let alone in real life. And Jinto was no exception. The part of the circlet that touched the frosh contained approximately 100 million flickering light emitters that picked up information from the ship's own suite of sensors and beamed it to the area of the frontal lobe pertaining to navigation, or the real bedo. That area of the brain was also unique to the Ov. When connected to a ship, the circlet became a personal radar, continuously probing the space around the user. To the Ov, the circlets weren't just indicators of family pedigree, but indispensable tools throughout their entire lives. Jinto realized he'd misconstrued something. When they'd first come face to face, he'd thought that she tried to stomp off by herself without confirming beforehand whether he'd actually follow her. But Lafier had, in fact, been able to sense him behind her through her frosh. I see. Yet Lafier was still nonplussed as to how to answer his question. But there's just no way I can explain what it's like. I can't imagine what it's like to live without any sense of Frocraw's. No, that makes sense. So, are you doing orbital calculations? Orbital calculations? Lafier looked at him blankly. No, I'm not. Then you must just be receiving raw numbers, huh? He was slightly disappointed. He'd overestimated this real bedo area of the Ov brain. I'm not receiving any numbers, either. But then, how are you determining the ship's trajectory? I just am. Think of it as intuition. Intuition? As in your gut. Right, she replied, nodding matter-of-factly. When you throw something, you aim using your intuition, don't you? It's like that. I determine the optimal trajectory and duration of propulsion instinctively, calculating all of it unconsciously. Is there something strange about that? I find it positively uncanny. I mean, there have got to be times when your aim's off the mark. Children may miss on occasion. Be at ease. I see, but that didn't give him much peace of mind. Jinto scanned the sheer Seder steering room. I was expecting the steering room of a spaceship to be more over the top. The steering room was spherical in shape. Only the floor was flat. With just a screen in front of each of the two adjustable seats, the room lacked the steering apparatuses and meters and instruments he'd imagined. It was just a smooth, opal-colored wall. Behind the seats hung the Graumonger, the ship's banner of the patrol ship Gosloth. Its design featured a loath, winged dragon. The upper left arm of Lafier's military uniform also featured the same symbol. The steering apparatus was attached to the seat. The adjustable seat had an armrest on its right side, upon which lay a number of posh controls. Naturally, those controls couldn't be enough to carry out the complex operations necessary to pilot a spaceship. That must be the Guhek, thought Jinto. Jinto fixed his eyes on the Guhek, the gauntlet-looking device hanging on the left of the adjustable chair. It looked long enough to cover the arm up the elbow, with an opening for the CompuWatch's display and controls. It was made of black synthetic leather, but it sported many metal parts as well. The fingers, especially, were completely covered in metal. It was said that Ovs guided their spaceships through the use of these control gloves, as well as through voice command. The buttons on the armrest were strictly for auxiliary, backup purposes. Jinto had learned of the control glove at the Ov Linguistic and Cultural Institute on Delk-2, but he still couldn't believe a spaceship could be maneuvered through the simple movement of the pilot's fingers. Hey, Jinto had a question for Lafier, who had equipped the control glove. Do you ever accidentally pick something up in your left hand while wearing that glove? I forget all about my left hand while flying the ship, she said. But I can't help thinking moving your fingers is a silly way to pilot. Why? Lafier cocked her head in puzzlement. Is there a better way? I think so. When landers pilot intersystem spaceships, it's more, well, he was about to say, more self-respecting, but he stopped mid-sentence. Best choose his words carefully. It's just, I heard those ships come attached with maneuvering gear laid out according to different ideas. That may be, but this method is superior. The apprentice star pilot pointed to her left arm. But Jinto persisted. It must be hard to remember how you're supposed to be moving your fingers. Do you not forget from time to time? Do you spend time thinking about the movements of your muscles when you walk? No. You aren't normally consciously aware of how you're walking. No, can't say I am. Indeed not. And likewise for me when I fly a ship. I need only think of what I wish the ship to do. Then my fingers move automatically. Thinking about it would only lead to hesitation as to how to move them. It would be counterproductive. I see. It's the fruit of your training. Jinto was impressed. I've been doing this since I was a child. It goes beyond mere training. That's so. Jinto was racked by an inferiority complex, but at the same time, he was overjoyed at how correct he'd been not to ask her if there were any other steerers aboard. Shall we depart? Asked Lefier. Yeah, of course. Whenever you're ready. The screen shined bright, and the curvy glyphs of Baranu, called Oth, started flowing from bottom to top. Can you read that? It's shooting so fast. Jinto was peering at his own display monitor. The green glyphs were dashing across the screen at such absurd speeds he could only make out a mass of flickering. He couldn't read any of it at all. He couldn't necessarily say it was because he just wasn't accustomed to it. I can't read it. Lefier took her eyes off the screen, quick to acknowledge that fact. All right then, said Jinto, pointing to the screen. What's this for? Computing crystals are checking over the ship. If there's anything wrong, it'll stay on screen as red text. Then there's no reason for all that other info to run across the screen, surely. Some people agree with you, Lefier acknowledged. I don't think it's particularly bothersome either way. And I like the vibe it gives. Can't argue with that. At last, the little green glyphs cleared off the screen, to be replaced by a big flashing, goss no, nothing abnormal detected. There you go, it's run its course. Seems simple enough. Yes. It's thanks to the crystals doing our work for us. There must be times the machines get things wrong. But humans make mistakes too, Lefier said to reassure him. Well, that makes me feel relieved. You're quite the worrier, aren't you? Our destination is right there. Do you think we could stand to rely on machines that break that easily? Well, when you put it that way, he said prudently. But how far is it from here to there? A meaningless question. Our destination is also in motion. In terms of altitude difference, we're about 5 sedas apart. The Ov inherited Earth's CGS system of units, with its centimeters, grams, and seconds, though it seemed they'd felt a great need to turn the words into their own native vocabulary. 5 sedas were exactly equivalent to 5,000 kilometers. From here to there, from the spaceport to the patrol ship, stretched at least 5,000 kilometers of empty space. To the kin of the stars, that distance wouldn't even be a stroll's worth, thought Jinto. It wouldn't kill them to be a little more humble with regard to the universe. With a flex of her left hand's fingers, the apprentice bade the Gosno on screen disappear. Now the screen displayed the bust of a spaceport crew member. Beliasse Flight Control hailed Lefier. Dock to First Planetary Spaceship Flight Control Center, the controller replied. This is the patrol ship Goslotha's docking vessel. Our Panawas, ship command, Vdalia Bosnal, soldier number code, is 0100093768 Please depressurize Military Bath Pier 2. Roger that, Gosloth docking vessel. I'll depressurize right away. Depressurized though it may be, it was impossible to tell what it was like outside from within the steering room. Wait, do you not know what it's like outside? Asked Jinto. He wanted to have her pull up video of the outside on the screen. It was his second ever time on a small ship, but he didn't really remember his first time, so it might as well have been his first time. He felt a little anxious, but he was also brimming with curiosity. You want to see? Yeah. I don't have Frocross. I see. A shadow of sympathy flashed over Lefier's face. All right. Apart from the screens and the ship's banner, the surrounding wall grew transparent. Of course, it hadn't actually started letting light through. It was processing the footage of the outside and providing stereoscopic imagery. This depressurization proved a massive disappointment. The whole compartment must have been thoroughly clean. No motes of dust hovered in the air. He understood that the air was getting thinner on an intellectual level, but nothing he was seeing lent that appearance. After about a minute, flight control apprised them that depressurization was complete. "Please unlock military Beth 2's Sohayuth lock gate," Lafier requested. "Roger that. Gosloth docking vessel." Now this was a sight to see. The right and left sides of the wall before them opened up. What lay beyond was a sea of stars. Total aperture confirmed. Requesting permission to leave port. Permission granted. Gosloth docking vessel. "Do you want an electromagnetic push?" "No need. I'll exit through cold propulsion," she said. "You'd probably hide your eyes during an EM push," she teased Jinto. "Yeah, I probably would," thought Jinto. "Roger. Gosloth docking vessel. We hope you return to your warship safely." Delta 1st Planetary Spaceship Flight Control Center, over and out. "You have my thanks." Gosloth docking vessel, over and out. When the Beliosega, flight control officer, disappeared from the screen, Lafier's left hand took to dancing once again. The vessel shuddered and then rose up. Jinto was on tenterhooks, fearing a collision with the ceiling. Lafier concentrated on her Frocraw's spatial awareness, going as far as closing her eyes, which was more than enough to get Jinto trembling. Needless to say, his fears were groundless. With exquisite equilibrium, the vessel soared both up and forward, and a mere instant before it would have hit the ceiling, crossed over into the starry fathoms. It felt as though his body was floating up along with it. They'd broken free of the sphere of Wamloth, gravitational control, exerted by the orbital tower. Thanks to his Opiof seatbelt, he didn't actually start levitating. The steerer's seat rotated 90 degrees. He could see the orbital tower jutting perpendicular to his feet, and Delktu's surface sprawled ahead of him. "You're incredible." Jinto's praises were heartfelt. "What do you mean?" "As in, you're an amazingly practiced hand at this." "Don't mock me," Lafier huffed. "Among the Ov, even children can fly a ship like this." "Sure, right? I mean, yeah, of course." His inferiority complex bubbled back to the fore. "But you're really young, though." "Sorry, I know it's rude to ask a girl her age." "You're trying to tell me I'm childish, aren't you?" "If looks could kill." "Don't be crazy. Is there anything in all of space that's easier than raising her hackles?" thought Jinto. "I'm trying to say that, like, it's hard to tell how old you people are, so I just wanted to confirm my hunch." "I see." The girl apprentice's mood had swung right back around. "You inferred correctly. I just turned 16 this year. I am really young." "Which makes her a year younger than me." "But what would be rude about asking?" said Lafier. "Huh? You said that asking a girl her age would be rude. But why would that be the case?" Jinto batted his eyes. Now that she mentioned it, why was it rude? "It's probably because ladies want to be seen as young. At least, the ladies of Delktu and Martinu do." "Intriguing. Why is that?" "Couldn't tell you. I'm no expert on female psychology, so try asking a Lander girl." He saw Lafier wasn't exactly satisfied by this response, so he attempted to change the subject. "Are apprentice star pilots all as young as you are?" "No," Lafier answered pridefully. That made her come across as all the younger. "The exam for the military academy isn't that difficult. It's so easy that if you don't pass it at 18, you ought to give up on functioning in respectable society. However, there are few who win admittance at age 13. Of this I can be a little proud, don't you agree?" "Yeah." Jinto felt a childish compulsion to measure up against her. "I've got things to be proud of, too. I had to learn 2 different foreign languages at the same time, but I still got accepted to a quartermaster's academy at 17. "Yes, that is amazing," said Lafier, genuinely impressed. Suddenly, a beery noise blared through the cabin. What was that? It sounded to him like an alarm. "We've entered a sector where we can accelerate." Lafier kept manipulating her control glove as though it were nothing. Jinto pushed down his embarrassment. "How long will it take?" "I'm afraid this ship isn't equipped with anything nifty like a Wamria gravity control system, so it depends on what level of acceleration you can withstand." I grew up on a planet's surface, bragged Jinto. Anov's Demon, standard gravity level, was said to be about half of Delctu's. If you can withstand it, then so can I. I see. In that case, it won't even take 7 minutes. Wow, that's fairly fast. It's not far at all. I hear you. He realized he might need to flesh out his sensation of cosmic distances sooner rather than later. The seats automatically increased in length, becoming something akin to bunks. Because the ship's direction and rate of acceleration could change at a dizzying pace in accordance with the exerted attitude control, it was easy to feel knocked around. That said, that only lasted for a fleeting moment. Let's go. The instant Leifir said that, Jinto was pressed against the back of his seat. Wah, what is this? His chest was ready to burst from the acceleration forces that had far exceeded his expectations. Keemkoth, acceleration, said Leifir nonchalantly. You aren't going to tell me you didn't know about acceleration, I trust. I do. I know about it. But not this fast. He was finding it difficult even to move his lips. He could tell by the numbness in his extremities that his blood vessels were being crushed. He could probably endure a minute of this, but 7 minutes would be well beyond him. You're fine. I'm fine. Our ancestors didn't have any gravity control systems, so we built our bodies to be able to work under both high gravity forces and microgravity. I, too, have inherited those genes. It's all in the skeleton and circulatory system. In other words, he was in no mood to listen to an elaborate explanation. Please, Leifir, shift the acceleration down a little. It'll take longer. Would that land us in hot water somehow? Not particularly. The ship's schedule was compiled to allow for extra time. For veteran navigators, allowing some leeway is practically a requirement. One can never know what's coming, after all. Good. I'm begging you. Okay. It can't be helped. She stopped accelerating. Now I have to change course. Can I accelerate just a little? Jinto shook his head. Yeah, you can go a little faster than that. Just enough so I can bear it a bit more easily than before. Leifir's fingers flitted in the air. It began accelerating once again. It was still more severe than the planet Martin's level of gravity, but it was no longer a trial to endure. He could probably even walk around if he wanted. How is it now? This is good. But it'll take a lot more time now. No other choice, replied Jinto. I'm not in a hurry anyway. What's our gravity level? 4 Demon. The standard for when landers are aboard. For longer journeys, we drop it down to 2 Demon. That's around where the gravity level of most terrestrial worlds is. You should have warned me that it'd be too much for a lander, said Jinto ruefully. I thought you had intimated you were made of hardier stuff, said Leifir, making it clear she had no malicious intent. Honestly, I should thank you for overestimating me. Besides, you aren't a lander. You're an Ov. Well, it's annoying, but I really don't feel like one, since genetically I'm 100% lander. You must get that. The law could call him an Ov all it wanted. It didn't change his genetics. To raise an extreme example, obtaining legal recognition as a bird would not allow him to take flight. Genetics aside, said Leifir, I think you ought to become Ov in terms of your attitude. An imperial noble wouldn't lose their composure over something like high acceleration. I've taken your words of admonishment to heart, he said, chastened. He'd anticipated that he wouldn't be cut out to be an imperial noble, and now that feeling had morphed into a strong conviction. He contemplated having them send him back right now so he could ask Durin for a job. However, it'd be a bitter pill indeed to tell everyone he'd turn back. At last, there were several seconds of microgravity and attitude control, and the vessel shifted to decelerating. The planet Delctu, floating above them, had become an orb speckled with white and blue. Jinto was assailed by the illusion he was falling without end. Hey, said Jinto. What's your position in society? Why are you asking me something like that? Leifir asked back chidingly. Jinto panicked. It seemed that she'd mistaken him as trying to flaunt his own position as a noble. I was just wondering why someone so young joined the Star Forces, that's all. I thought maybe you were planning to get your duties over with quickly like me. Was it rude of me to ask? It wasn't, but I don't want to talk about it. Until I become a Sidoria, imperially certified pilot, and as long as I'm wearing this military uniform, I can't wear anything that shows my family lineage. So you're saying that within the star forces, your social standing doesn't matter? Correct. In the military, this is what means everything. Lafier pointed to the rank insignia on her left arm. I understand. It's just, I only wanted to ask you why you wanted to join. Was it out of obligation, or because you wanted to? I am obligated, Lafier acknowledged. I knew it. Military service wasn't imposed on mere gentry. To them, admittance to an academy was a right, not a duty. He took this as confirmation that Lafier must be a young maiden of none other than noble stock. I thought as much. What? Oh, nothing, he said evasively. He had guessed she might be of noble birth, but since that hunch was based on his impressions of her, namely, that she seemed haughty even when not speaking, to say nothing of when she opened her mouth, he thought it wise to keep mum. Thankfully, she didn't pursue the matter. It's not just out of obligation, though. Why actually, then? I wanted to come of age as soon as possible. Ah, I see. If one received an appointment as a star pilot, they were summarily recognized as an adult. Was there really any need to hurry past your childhood, though? Living a life of comfort as a kid's pretty sweet, you know. Lafier chewed it over, and then, at last, settled on a response. Do you have any secrets regarding your birth? Secrets regarding my birth, replied a disconcerted Jinto. No, no secrets. I mean, my mom died when I was little, but apart from that. Your mother? I thought your parent is male. The Count of Hyde, Dryohaderlon, is your father, no? That's right, he's my dad. Ah, I understand your confusion now. Jinto recalled the structure of the Ov family unit. The Ov did not marry. In Ov society, lovers couples did sometimes live together. It was not uncommon for these partnerships to last long enough to be quite like a marriage, and on very rare occasions, they even lasted till death did them part. However, this was not an institution. It was simply one of many ways to live one's life. To burn with maddening passion, and then for that passion to go up in flames with nary a trace left, this was the typical form of love. It was likely difficult for the Ov, who lived forever young, to latch onto the ideal of marriage, premised as it was on growing old together. As such, single parents were commonplace, and there was no concept of two-parent units. This, of course, would make an Ov's one parent either male or female, lending the phrases Mama's boy Fruk Sarin and Daddy's girl Friam Loron altogether different meanings. They now meant a boy with a female parent and a girl with a male parent. You've heard of the institution of marriage, right? Asked Jinto. Yes, I have. I was being absent-minded. You were raised a lander, so of course. Yep, I'm the product of a marriage. The son of both a father and a mother at the same time. I see. Lafier cocked her head. What is it like to have two parents? When your mother died, were you sad? Well, surprised by the bluntness of the question, Jinto nevertheless searched his memories. What met him wasn't the mother he'd only ever seen on holovision, but the face of Lena Clint. Yeah, it was sad. Forgive me. It was a foolish thing to ask. Lafier cast down her eyes. It's fine, honestly. It happened when I was so young, I don't really remember much, to tell you the truth. However, said Lafier with palpable envy, that means you can't have any secrets regarding your birth. Huh? Why's that? If both of your Larlene, gene donors, were in your house, then how could there be anything hidden about your birth? You've got it wrong. Jinto was stumped as to how to correct Lafier's misunderstanding. I don't know what it's like on other terrestrial worlds, but on planets like Martin and Delctu, a child can be born without one or both of the parents wanting it that way. Plus, in the past, there were people who wanted to be parents but couldn't. So that's how there can be some secrecy regarding birth. I'm sure there are more examples of how that can come about, too. Such as, Lafier didn't hide her bewilderment. That, you can look into yourself. It can get really complicated. What is all this about birth secrets anyway? What does it have to do with you joining the military? I do have a birth secret. I had no idea whether I was a Friam Neg, daughter of love. You can imagine how ill at ease that made me. A daughter of love. It sounded like some religious term to him. Despite the fact the Ov were irreligious, that is. What's that mean, exactly? You don't know. Lafier looked startled. I'm beginning to realize my education was lacking in certain aspects, said Jinto, but it smelled of making excuses. Though it was technically an of linguistic and cultural institute, the lessons centered mostly on the Baranya language. As for how they conducted their cultural instruction, they settled on briefly touching upon general manners and the like. There were no lectures on the core tenets of culture. He'd asked his teachers questions and hid his books, but he never found anything too concrete. The information circulated by official documents on matters, such as political organizations and the law, was fine, but any information that looked closely into the daily lives of the Av was a confusing tangle. Jinto had had no clue which claims he ought to believe. Half of the blame for that fell on the Av themselves. It was not as though they deliberately concealed the particulars of their culture, but there was a distinct dearth of enthusiasm to explain any of it to the uninitiated. All in all, because the teachers had only worked alongside Avs temporarily, they had done nothing more than look upon their world from the outside. The books had been published by former imperial citizens, not by Avs. Some authors who had never even left Delpte got what amounted to irresponsible speculation and yellow journalism published as legitimate sources of information in those books. Avs hardly ever spoke about themselves to Landers. And that's why there are still some things I still don't get about the way family works in Av culture. Everybody knows Avs don't marry, but so how do they have children? Fearing he might have touched on a sensitive topic, Jinto scanned Leifir's expression. Leifir seemed quite unfazed. I see. So you don't know anything about how we're born? Yeah, that is, Jinto struggled for words, his face red. Just his luck, he'd somehow stumbled into asking her the age-old question, where do babies come from? He thought he'd grown past needing to ask that particular question. To think he'd end up posing the question to a girl. A girl younger than him, at that. I know you people don't conceive in the womb. There are some who choose to do so. Really? But what about the gene donors then? The embryo gets taken out temporarily. Usually it's transferred to a Yanyu, artificial womb, but some women who want an exotic experience have it returned to the womb. I see. And so he learned a hidden truth of the Av. The rumor on Delpte had it that of women had no wombs. But conception using artificial wombs is the norm, yes. Gotcha. Jinto shrugged. Now you must understand why even if I tried acting like an Av, it'd be a waste of effort. It's like your entire race has birth secrets. I tried looking into it, but there were so many dodgy, ridiculous accounts. Some said that you make offspring out of your own branches, or that you mix together complete strangers' genes, or that you combine your genes with someone of the same gender, or that you even mate with relatives. Seriously, how do they come up with this stuff? We do all of those things, Leifir butted in. Wah! Jinto's jaw dropped. Some people simply clone themselves, or else edit only a few genes. Some gather the genes of other people. It's up to each individual's free choice. For real. Jinto was flummoxed. But don't you put a premium on family lineage? From what you just said, I'd be of half a mind to think you ignore blood ties altogether. What's held in highest importance in each household is the inheritance of its family traditions, not the inheritance of genes. Wait, but... A parent becomes a parent by polishing their child's genes and raising them up. I understand. After a moment's contemplation, he looked convinced. It may be only natural for the Av, who practice gene alteration on an everyday basis, to slight blood relationships. That being said, the most common way to have a child is by combining your genes with the genes of someone you love. I'm relieved to hear that, said Jinto. Of course, there are times when someone loves another of the same sex, or a close relative, or more than one person at a time. I've heard that when people from terrestrial worlds are told this, it agitates them for some reason. Leifir cast Jinto's face an inquisitive look. It'd agitate them all right, Jinto assured her. I'm in a pretty big tizzy myself. I find that strange. It's not as though we have a monopoly on genetic engineering. I can't speak for others, said Jinto with discretion, but at least on the terrestrial worlds I know, it seems people wouldn't really think tampering with people's genes is a praiseworthy pastime. So it would seem. Leifir suddenly shot Jinto an angry look. Let me warn you that I'm not dispassionate about it, either. If you give it a moment's thought, you'll come to my realization that this isn't a discussion two people in a sealed space should be having. I'm sorry. So the Av felt that way too. Jinto did his best to retain his composure. In any case, telling someone that you want their genes is one of the most earnest ways to confess one's love. There was something dreamy in her tone. Interesting. It was like the "will you marry me" of the Av. A child born under those circumstances is called. I know what you're going to say, Jinto interrupted. She's called a daughter of love, right? Yes. And a boy is called a frukneg. Their awkward yet fascinating conversation had seemingly come to an end. The tension in Jinto's body released. But couldn't you just ask your father? Then he got a start. Hold on, your father isn't. Those deep, jet-black eyes pointed his way. No, my father is still alive. And at this rate, he'll be hale and healthy for another 200 years. Is that what you were thinking? You got me. It seemed she'd read into his little pause. Then why haven't you asked him? Do you think it didn't cross my mind? Well, no. My father wouldn't tell me, she raged. He was obsessed with the notion that birth secrets lead to the child developing a fuller personality. And there was no way to look it up? Once you become an adult, you can browse your genetic record and no one can interfere. But until then, you need your parents' permission. So that's it. It finally made sense now. He put the pieces together. She wanted to come of age as quickly as she could in order to discover the origins of her genes. I didn't even fully believe the reason he gave for hiding it. I think he perhaps kept birth secrets solely to wind me up. But why? I'll never forget it. When I was a child, I wanted him to tell me that I'm a daughter of love, so I was always badgering him to show me my gene donor. But he just refused to reveal them. Until one day, he finally agreed to bring my gene donor for me to meet. What do you think happened then? Did he not bring them after all? No, he committed a far more insidious act. He tricked me. He held Horia in his arms and said, "Say hello to one half of your genes." Who's Horia? Our cat, she spat bitterly. Jinto burst out laughing. Tell me you didn't believe him, Leifir. It's not impossible. Leifir watched Jinto's mirthful grin with resentment. What really? The outer corners of Leifir's eyes were high on her head, not at all unlike a cat's eyes. You people go that far? It's against the law. It would be unethical. I'm glad I've found a point of moral agreement with you people. You're Av, too. Right. Jinto didn't deny it. But then, wasn't it obvious it wasn't true? I was 8 years old. Of course, I wouldn't be very interested in legalities. You've got me there. I cried that whole night. Horia is a nice cat, but I couldn't stand the idea that half of me came from it. I totally understand. Okay, maybe not totally, but I understand. And the thing I could stomach the least was how my own father was a degenerate who enjoyed creating cat children. Leifir's right hand swung animatedly in the air. An unspeakable anxiety came over Jinto, who looked at the apprentice star pilot's left hand. The control glove on her left hand was so still, it was as though it was held in place by glue. Relief washed over him. Horia was only a kitten when it came to our home, and what's more, I remembered the day it joined our family. And yet it took a whole night of tears for me to realize that. Hey, all's well that ends well, right? No, because I got it in my head that I must be the child of another cat. Every day I was worried I would grow pads on my palms, or that my nails would become retractable, or that my irises would change shape. Even now, I've never tensed up as badly as when I stared at my reflection in the mirror after my irises constricted from exposure to bright light. But now all doubt's been cleared, I imagine. Yes, Leifir nodded. Though I'll never forget those restless days. Part of the reason I want to become a star pilot is to get out from under my father. You don't like your father? Jinto didn't know whether of standards of etiquette could condone prying into the life of a stranger this thoroughly, but despite his trepidation, he just had to ask. I don't dislike him. Her otherwise pretty face wrinkled up in a grimace. I don't want to admit it, but I love him and I'm proud of him. It's just that when I'm near him, I sometimes get irritated. The image of the face of his own father, the Count of Hyde, came to mind. A face he hadn't seen except through occasional correspondence for 7 years. The feeling that he'd been betrayed by him, those 7 years prior, festered inside him. He couldn't really lie to himself that he loved him. But he didn't hate him either. He felt nothing at all for him. That deep recess of his heart was refusing to embrace the emotion. I guess every family's got its share of circumstances, Jinto remarked. So, you kept saying your father wouldn't tell you, but did you finally get him to at some point? Yes. She turned around, and with a beaming smile, said, "She's someone I know well, a woman I look up to." I was a daughter of love. Good, Jinta said. And he meant it with all his heart.